Hello, you're watching TVP World Talks, and I'm Jan Śledziński. For months now, Europe has been rife with speculation about the future of the transatlantic alliance, with some theories going as far as even questioning its very existence. Is America abandoning Europe? Is it still even an ally? These were the questions that were being asked. Now, the keynote speech by US State Secretary Marco Rubio appears to offer a glimpse into how America views its allies and what it expects of them. And as the US official is heading to Slovakia and Hungary, it's time to examine the vision of future relations between America and Europe. Our guest today is Martin Sklenár, former Slovakian defense minister. Hello and welcome to TVP World.
Good morning.
So first, let's talk about the speech that was made by the US State Secretary yesterday. What do you make of it? Which points would you agree with, and which perhaps offer some food for thought regarding these relations between the US and Europe?
Well, we have to say that the speech by Marco Rubio has been very much welcomed in Europe. It was in stark contrast to the one given by J.D. Vance the year before in the exact same place in Bayerischer Hof in Munich. So in that sense, it gives the overall tone was positive, was constructive. And I have to say, very frankly, it was a little bit surprising to hear this or to have this kind of tone of a speech of the highest U.S. representative in Munich. It was very well welcomed, as I said. The Europeans see it as a possibility to work with the U.S. administration to restore the previous level of relationship of the transatlantic relationship, which is good. But as Keir Starmer noted, it is important not to fall into the trap of thinking that everything is going to be back to the business as it used to be, which would be a mistake that the Europeans would make. Marco Rubio, in his speech, he mentioned several times that Europe and the US are very closely connected culturally, politically, but also in terms of greater geopolitics. He offered that the U.S. leads the new reborn West to basically keep up with the new developments in the world, the great power competition. He offered Europe to walk the path together and create a strong alliance in not only in the sense of security but also in the broader economic and political terms, which is something that we haven't heard from the U.S. side for a longer time now, and opportunities like this have been used by the U.S. administration to rather criticize everything that Europe was not doing according to the interests and liking of the U.S. So.
But
so
some criticism was still there, wasn't it? Some of that criticism was still there. I mean, Marco Rubio mentioned climate policy as something that the US doesn't want to pursue and encouraged Europe not to do it either. He also mentioned migration. He mentioned that, the concept of the end of history was a folly that should not have been followed, and that this led to deindustrialization of Europe again. So some critics say this was partially the J.D. Vance speech repackaged so that it would go down better with European leaders, but some of the contents were quite similar. Would you agree with those critics? To some extent, at least.
I wouldn't be as harsh in the criticism of the speech. I agree there were points that mirror the line of the U.S. administration, and it's also something that objectively has to be said and has to be heard in Europe. So with many of the points. Also, many Europeans would be in agreement, which, as I said, has to be said and understood. But the tone was also very important because you can, especially at the diplomatic events like this, you can bring your points over and across in different ways. And the way that Marco Rubio, as the Secretary of State, of course, the highest diplomat, so to say, of the U.S. He presented it in a more diplomatic way, but which offers the kind of constructive approach that the Europeans are actually always wanting to hear from the United States, or are more welcoming it, because the harsh criticism sometimes puts you in a position where it's difficult to even start talking about finding common interest.
So this actually led some European leaders to become defensive at the time about their values, about even the future of the alliance, leading to this discussion about whether the alliance still exists. So would you say that the NATO alliance, according to what we've seen recently, is definitely not dead and definitely has a future, but has to be recalibrated? And a related question, is Europe up to the task? The US wants European countries to take more responsibility for it. Do you think that this finally will be the agreement that is going to be reached between the parties?
I think the discussion on this is ongoing, right? I mean, NATO is not dead. It's still going on. I mean, we have the nuclear deterrence piece. We have all the defense planning, the deterrence, the conventional deterrence is in place within the alliance. The alliance meets regularly. I mean, there's significant discussions and decisions being done, also in support to Ukraine, but also for the security and defense of alliance proper. So in that sense, it's working, and the Europeans are taking over more and more responsibility in that sense, right? The most recent example we see is the taking over of several important military positions in the NATO command structure, which reflects actually quite significantly the changes that are being done, and that also presents the possibility of considering the NATO command arrangement, but also other type of structures and institutions that NATO has built as being Europeanized in a sense, not in a sense that the US would be pulling out of NATO, but that the Europeans are actually doing what the US has always been asking for, or always, I mean, for a very long time now. Has been asking for taking more responsibility, investing into defense. That's the part that is being taken care of by the European Union and Commissioner Kubilius, and simply providing more force to the common alliance table. So I would argue that the Europeans are aware what they need to do. They are willing to do it, and they are doing it, and they're starting to have some successes. The main question is whether the speed at which Europe is able to do this will be quick enough to reflect the changes in the environment, the possible threats that we see are mounting on the periphery of Europe, or on the borders of Europe, and this is the main questions. And in this sense, it is also important that the US doesn't pull out too soon too much of its attention. Not forces, but attention to Europe, also in the military and security domains.
So now this is about convincing individual allies. As you've mentioned, it's a question of whether NATO would be able to react quickly enough. So let's talk about Eastern Europe first. Marco Rubio is traveling to Slovakia. Now, Slovakia and Hungary have not been in the vanguard of security spending. The threat perception perhaps slightly lower than it is in the Baltic states or Poland, but higher than in countries far, far away in the West. Now, do you think that Marco Rubio will be able to convince Robert Fico, for example, to spend more on the military, even though there has been a certain degree of skepticism? Some governments, especially those that maintain a populist front, say, well, shouldn't we be focusing on peace, cooperation, instead of military spending? Even though it might be a false narrative, it's still something that some of their voters are buying into. So will the US be able to change their minds?
Well, let's see about that. The importance of the Rubio visit to Slovakia and Hungary also is political mostly. Let's consider that as the most important motivation for Secretary Rubio to travel to these countries. We have seen this, by the way. We have seen this with J.D. Vance also in last year. He went to the Munich Security Conference and then met with the opposition in Germany, before the election, which was another level straining the relationship. So this is again with Rubio, it's a little bit of a more diplomatic move, because he's meeting in Slovakia a government that is in place, and elections are expected only in almost 2 years or a year and a half. But in Hungary, the election is coming up later in April, and Rubio's presence will be very carefully examined and very visibly seen. Right, he will have a discussion with the leaders on defense spending, obviously, but their arguments, especially in Slovakia, will be yes, we have a difficult situation in our budget. But this is what we can do with our defense spending. We understand that it's at the level that is the minimum, but we will see what our plans will make possible in the future. But out of that, even if we are at 2.01 or 1.8 or whatever the percentage of GDP might be, out of that we are spending a lot on U.S. equipment. Certainly in the case of Slovakia, and that will be the main argument that Rubio will hear, especially in Bratislava. Coupled with more economic cooperation, Prime Minister Fico recently went to the United States to close an agreement that should lead to a 15 billion contract on nuclear energy with the United States. So there's going to be plenty of points being made regarding the economic cooperation and the investments that are coming, or the cooperation that is bringing the good business, the good deals between Slovakia, the U.S. And a similar discussion will be had also in Hungary. But the relationship between U.S. and Hungary is in a different position than U.S. and Slovakia, right? The U.S. has been very strongly supporting the current government, or the current administration has been strongly supporting the current government in Hungary, where Slovakia is looking for a very interested United States, and is trying to make sure that they understand that they have a big interest in that.
Do you think this is also a part of a broader strategy of the US to actually create a group of countries that are more likely to remain loyal to Washington than Brussels? We've seen glimpses of that in strategic documents. The current administration is rather skeptical of the European Union. So countries which are already at odds with Brussels would seem to be perfect allies in this political rivalry, right?
Yes, and it's absolutely visible that from all the European countries that Rubio could have chosen for his trip, he decided to go to Bratislava and Hungary. And again, as I say, Marco Rubio has met Prime Minister Fico just a couple of weeks ago in Mar-a-Lago with Donald Trump at their meeting in Florida. So him coming back so early to Slovakia is a deliberate step on the side of the United States. And yes, as you say, these countries are the most visible troublemakers, so to say, in the European family, and the U.S. is sure to underpin that sentiment for the internal consumptions in the countries, in Slovakia and in Hungary, but also making sure that to show that these are the kind of relationships that are the priority for us right now.
What would you say, just very quickly, is the reason why Trump is so frustrated with the European Union in particular?
Well, it's it might be, and I don't want this to sound very very demeaning, but it might be the same kind of problems that Vladimir Putin is having. I mean, European Union is very attractive for people. It offers great potential, can be a strong economic force, and in that sense, it might take over from the leadership role of the U.S., right? So it could be something different. What Marco Rubio has also said in his speech, he said that the U.S. wants to lead, but if the European Union becomes even stronger and finds a very effective way of deciding and leading issues, it can become the leader of the Western world, which is threatening the position of the United States.
Martin Sklenár was our guest today here on TVP World. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
And I'm Jonasz Rowiński. Please do stay with us.